Welcome everybody to the At One podcast. Welcome to our Christmas episode. It's the week leading up to Christmas, and just before hitting record I realized how much of a big year it has been. And this is our final episode for 2022. So it's the year that we started. It's the year At One launched. It's the year the At One podcast started, and this episode is going to be about reflecting and looking back at the highlights, maybe some learning points, maybe looking ahead, what's coming for the next year, and yeah, I think if you've made it this far into the podcast,
thank you.
Yeah, you deserve a big thank you, and we just want to show our appreciation and gratitude to everyone that has shown us support over this year. No matter how big or small, you're much appreciated, and we wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't for you guys. It's been a bloody journey, and it's not over.
No.
So
continuing for sure.
Yeah, hopefully you've had a good December. Hopefully you're excited for Christmas and the Christmas holidays, and maybe you're wrapping up the year and looking forward to 2022 to be over and done with. But wherever you are, we're glad that you're here. We're glad that you're with us, and yeah, we're gonna start this podcast. So how are you feeling right now, Saskia? At the start of the last podcast of 2022, what are your thoughts? What are your feelings?
I know it's such a cliche when people say, oh my God, this year has gone so fast. So I kind of don't want to say it, but also I just can't believe how fast this year has gone. It's so true when people say, the older you get, the faster time goes. So I just feel this year has really flown by, and it's mad that we're on our last podcast. When did we actually start this? Was it in the summer? UK summer?
I don't know.
I actually can't remember.
I started it when I moved back to Australia.
Okay, so it would have been like March, I suppose.
Yeah, probably around March time.
Maybe later on, I can't remember.
Around that time. A few months after we launched that one, which was January 27, I think it was.
27th, yeah.
That was when we went live. So we are almost coming up to a year. So we're going to have to do a 1 year anniversary episode.
So I think I feel mostly proud that we've managed to keep it going and release one every second week. I think that's quite an achievement because it does take a lot of work. And didn't you say that most podcasts after however many episodes tend to
Carlo
fizzle out?
Yeah, Carlo Cirillo said most podcasts don't make it past 15 episodes.
And I think
we're on 18,
about there.
Yeah, I should know that.
Check that.
But yeah, I think it's about 18 episodes.
It's quite a few, So I'm proud of us that we've managed to keep it going this far. And yeah, just excited to keep going with it and get some more guests on next year.
I actually love chatting to people and hearing their stories. And we've had some really good feedback from most of our episodes, and I've really enjoyed chatting to all of our guests. I think we've had a good variety of people on this podcast, and hopefully you've learned as much as we have from speaking to professionals from different walks of life. We've had yoga teachers, we've had meditation practitioners, there was Chelvi, the Chelvi episode. That was probably one of my favorites. We've had Cass, who's fantastic. We've had life coaches, psychologists. What are your kind of top episodes? Obviously we love everyone.
We love all of them.
We love all of them, but which ones are the standout ones for you, especially as the host as well?
Definitely my one with Chelvi. That probably is number one for me.
Sorry everybody else.
Sorry. I love them all. I love them all, but that one I guess was the most personal for me because she has been or has played such an important role in my meditation journey. And yeah, I was kind of quite nervous for that one because it was such a big topic. But I just felt like it went really well, and it felt very natural, and I felt like I could have carried on talking to her for hours and hours, and it was just so easy, and my heart felt so full afterwards. So that's probably my top one.
That was a beautiful episode to witness. If you don't know, well, you probably wouldn't know, but whenever there's an episode of with Saskia and a guest, I'm usually in the corner silently watching.
And that's quite off-putting, actually.
Yeah. and that one was a real special episode. I remember when I was sitting there listening to you guys talk, I was literally thinking, fuck, this is a good episode. Like, this is amazing. And I was just in awe of the way Chelby spoke, and you could see, I don't know, you could just see how amazing she was and how knowledgeable she was, and it was an honor to kind of hear her talk.
Yeah.
So that was probably one of my favorites as well. Other than that, the one with Marie, on ADHD,
yeah.
that one
That
really
resonated with
that
you,
one really
didn't it?
resonated with me, because we had a lot of chats about ADHD off the air, off camera, and I learned a lot about myself and about ADHD, especially as it's such a big topic at the moment. Like, a lot of people are, a lot of more people are being diagnosed with it, and learning about it, and learning and changing the perspective of ADHD, and taking it away from like it's a problem that needs to be fixed, and learning to use it as a strength, and it's just the way some people are. You know, people are all different. So that was a really, really powerful episode for me. I think if I had to choose one, that one hit me the hardest.
Yeah, I loved your one with Break the Cycle as well.
Oh yeah,
I really, really enjoyed that one. That was probably one of my favorites. I mean, I wasn't in that one, but I listened to it, and yeah, I just thought that both Jameses spoke really, really well and really articulated how they felt really well. And it was such a good insight. I just think it's such an important topic, and there were some very sensitive things you spoke about within that podcast, but you did it, all three of you did it very tactfully, and yeah, I thought that was a really raw one, but a really, really, really good one.
Yeah, that was beautiful, because it was one where three dudes were pretty vulnerable with each other. As a host, that one was one of the most difficult episodes, because I was managing, it was the first time I was managing two guests, and both of them were called James. So I realized very early on in the podcast, shit, this is really hard.
You should have.
How do I differentiate the two? And I didn't want to, like, because we're mates, I didn't want to give them, my nicknames, because like that may not be appropriate for the podcast. But and there's like, they're kind of in jokes. Yeah. So I had to kind of that was a bit challenging, but it was still a really good episode, and I think the topic was really powerful. Yeah. I loved that one as well, because the three of us were from really different backgrounds and different countries. Yeah. So it gave a really good perspective of like three different dudes. Yeah.
But you all kind of work within, not necessarily healthcare, but just with people. Oh, potentially vulnerable people. Actually, all three of you work with vulnerable people.
Yes, that is true.
So you obviously were paramedics, James A, let's call him, with psychology, and James B with family law. Yeah. So
if you haven't heard that episode, highly recommend checking out all our episodes, but those ones are probably the top. Yeah. I would say they're the winners. Great. Let's talk about Christmas for a sec.
Oh, I love Christmas. Although I'm going to be honest, guys. So this is my first ever Christmas in the sun. Not that it's been that sunny generally here in Melbourne recently, but it's my first hot Christmas, and I feel weird about it. I feel strange. It's lovely, but it just doesn't feel like Christmas. I just can't. Like, we are literally a week away from Christmas, and I just don't feel Christmassy. So maybe that will change within the next week. But I've even watched some Christmas films. I've listened to some Christmas music, and it just feels bizarre. It just feels like I'm listening to it at completely the wrong time of year. So I don't know. Maybe it's something I'll get used to. But yeah, I'm a big, big Christmas fan. I'm like a kid when it comes to Christmas. I love it. But this is a bit of something a bit different for sure.
I have to agree with you. Like, I'm a big Christmas fan as well, but I think Christmas in the UK feels better, to be honest. I think I like I like the coziness of it, and there's just more Christmas there. I find especially in the city that we were in, there's just a real vibe around town, and there's more decorations, and I don't know, maybe Christmas has changed in Australia. It's been so long since I've had a Christmas here, but maybe it is different. But this year particularly, it just doesn't feel super Christmassy.
No, it doesn't. But try and be open-minded. I still think we'll have a great day, just spending it as most people do, I guess, with just family and friends kind of thing. But
But that it goes,
Yeah.
you know, that's a good point you've brought up. Like, this is your first Christmas here, and it leads on to what a big change this year has been
Yeah,
for you.
for sure.
You know, at one has been ticking along, but our personal lives have been absolutely crazy. Some big life changes, which have been exciting and challenging at the same time, and it's been a real roller coaster.
Yeah.
You've moved countries. We both moved countries.
We both moved countries. Yeah, I mean, one of my questions that I was going to ask you today actually was what were the challenges of this year for you? But I guess you've kind of asked me a similar question, so I'll start. So yeah, definitely moving countries was probably the biggest challenge of this year. The fear that came along with that, the uncertainty, the difficulty in, of course, leaving my family. And if you know me, you know I'm very close to my family, particularly my parents, and also our group of friends. We kind of created a real solid little community, a little group of friends in our hometown. Well, I say our hometown, in my hometown. And so leaving them behind was really, really hard. And also from a kind of business perspective, working in Canterbury for 4 years, freelance yoga teacher. I built up lots of students, lots of classes, lots of private sessions, and suddenly leaving all that behind and starting again from scratch was absolutely terrifying. Thinking that, like, I don't know what Melbourne's going to be like in terms of finding work. It's a big city. Am I just going to be like a little fish in a big pond that just gets lost in a sea of yoga teachers? I really had no idea what it would be like. So yeah, that was probably the biggest change and challenge of the year for me. And also, you know, we had Marcus left before I did, and so we had about 4 months apart of doing kind of long distance, and I think running a business was challenging during that time.
Yeah,
even though it's
definitely.
online, it doesn't really matter. It's just the fact that, like, communication is harder. Like, regardless of how good you are at it, if you are literally on opposite sides of the world, it's really, really difficult. So we had our challenges during that time as well.
Yeah, I kind of forget how challenging that time of the year was. Like, trying to coordinate everything and organize, like, uploading and recording videos, because like I'm the one with the camera.
He's the tech
and
guy. I'm absolutely not techie
yeah,
at all.
so we had to kind of make other arrangements, you know. So
Yeah.
It's kind of funny because, like, you know, you're saying like the challenges of, if anyone else is listening and they work freelance or they have worked freelance before, you'll understand the uncertainty and how difficult it is to, you know, build up a consistent business and the fear of not knowing when your next paycheck is coming. So for you to leave that and, you know, everything you'd built to move to a different country, yeah, it must have been scary. And I fully understand that now, because I kind of did the opposite, where I came from like real comfort and a career in paramedicine. That's probably the biggest change of my life this year, is like being a paramedic for like 6-7 years full time to freelance. Like coming to Australia, I was free to do whatever I wanted, and that was so liberating at first, but it got scarier and scarier because I realized if I don't get up and try to make money somehow, like, it ain't just happening because I don't have a job.
Yeah, I think it doesn't matter how much you explain to people what working freelance is like, or even see it, because you saw me doing it, but it's
I never understood it.
You never quite understand it until you actually do it yourself. And it has so many benefits. Like, we both love it so much, but it's also not always particularly stable or secure.
The way I describe it is like, it feels like you're working all the time for no money.
Which makes it sound shit.
Yeah, but
which is not.
But you love every minute of the work. You don't.
Yeah.
I don't ever hate any of the work that I'm doing. No. Do you know what I mean?
I don't go to bed on a Sunday night dreading Monday morning.
No, you don't get any of that. But yeah, yeah. Yeah. I think the biggest challenge for me this year, apart from that, was I had a lot of issues with my back.
Yeah.
I had a lot of back pain issues, and my my disc issues were really playing up, and so physically really challenging year for me. My mobility in terms of walking and stuff has been very difficult. A lot of pain, and doing that whilst trying to mentally stay sane and tell myself that I'm a yoga teacher was so hard, because I was like, how do I convince my student? You know, it's like this imposter syndrome. It just fed into my imposter syndrome of like, oh, like I'm now a full-time yoga teacher, but I can't walk properly. And that was really difficult to convince, to get the confidence to own what I was doing. So
that's kind of partly where our podcast, well, what our podcast was on when we talked about the yoga body.
Oh yeah, that episode, of course.
Because that kind of came a little bit from you struggling with physical stuff and me struggling with kind of the psychological aspect, but they both kind of like weave into one another.
We probably got the most feedback on that episode, I would say.
I think a lot of people could relate. Yeah,
definitely. So listen to that episode. Tell us if you relate to it, because we were pretty honest with how we felt about ourselves and working in this industry, like how that affected us.
Yeah.
Or rather, how our view of ourselves affected our work in the industry.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And this is an ongoing thing. It's not like, oh, cool, this happened this year, I've learnt that, next year is going to be different. Like, it's a constant, like, you're still struggling with back pain right now as we speak.
Oh,
like, it's still, we still have days where we find filming content or making content really hard. So it's never, like a kind of thing like, oh yeah, this is what I struggled with and this is fixed now. It's just like, this is something that we came face to face with this year, and it's ongoing.
100%.
It's still,
and you're constantly developing. Constantly developing. You know, we've learned things, and we may still have the same problems next year, but we can maybe approach them in different ways and approach them with not fresh eyes, but like wiser eyes. You know, because we've been through it before. So I think it's really important that we're sitting down and discussing this, and I encourage people to do this with your year at home. Like, look back at the things that you did and achieved, and maybe even struggled with in 2022, and see what you can take from it. Like, there was an episode. God, we're referencing all of our episodes.
Yeah, I know.
It was like the turning your pain into power.
Oh yeah.
You know, so like that's a big one. Like, that's essentially what we're doing. Like, the things that were shit about your year, look back at them, see what you've learned, and then next year you may have the same problem again, but you're not approaching it with new eyes. You're approaching it with the wisdom and the knowledge of going through it before.
Yeah.
So it's important to do this reflection. I
think so, for sure. I do it every year, pretty much. I mean, just not as publicly as this, I have to say, but just to myself. I'm big on journaling, and so I always do a kind of little reflection bit. Yeah,
you're good at that stuff, and I feel maybe a lot more females are better at that reflection stuff. Like, dudes, like, I would never have thought before remember when we went to that we went to like was it the new moon thing at Union? This was before I was a yoga teacher. This was so long ago. It was a new moon intentions thing at Union Yoga in Ramsgate. This was at the Ramsgate. No, Margate.
That's a Margate.
It was in Margate. It was before they moved to Ramsgate.
Yeah.
This is the place that I did my yoga teacher training. Before we did that intention setting class, I'd never even considered like writing shit down in that way. And I didn't know how helpful it was to, you know, actually journal and write down things that you want to reflect on or want to maybe achieve in the future.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's so helpful. I've been keeping a journal since I was 9 years old. That's a fun fact. And I don't write in it every day. But it's something that I come back to often to do just that. Write, reflect, reconnect.
Yeah. What else has been a highlight from this year for you?
So I was thinking about this earlier, and I kind of went like chronologically throughout the year. And the first highlight is probably quite a personal one, so I'm not going to talk about it too long. But my mum had a big birthday, and I'm not going to tell everyone how old she was. Maybe she won't want me to do that. But anyway, she had a big birthday, and so I decided to plan a really big surprise party for her, and she had no idea. And I got so many different friends and family members to come along, some of which she hadn't seen for years and years and years. And the moment she walked in the door and everyone, it was a lot to organise. It was quite stressful. But the moment she walked in the door and everyone shouted surprise, and she just was, the look on her face was just something that I will remember forever. She was just so happy and amazed to see everyone. And she made a little speech where she got all emotional, and then I got all emotional. And it was just a really, really beautiful evening. And Marcus managed to capture some ridiculous videos of my dad dancing, which every time I feel like, I don't know, just sad or whatever, I always just look back on because they make me laugh so much.
Yeah.
So that was definitely a personal highlight, just because it was such a lovely evening, and I just felt it was so nice to be able to do that for my mum. So yeah, that was really good.
What about an At One highlight?
Do you know, I think obviously just starting it and actually getting it off the ground was certainly a highlight, because it took us so long to kind of think about what we were going to call it and how we were going to go about it. So actually doing it was definitely a highlight. I think one of my favourite things about it this year in general, apart from obviously creating the videos and teaching on it, is actually doing all the branding and doing all the like artwork for it, because that's something that I love doing. Art, like I love painting, but I just don't often get the time to do it. So it gives me a creative outlet that's still, for the business. So I've really, really enjoyed that, and creating a bit more of a brand and learning. I don't even know if you'd call it graphic design. I feel like it's graphic designers be like, that's not graphic design, but just learning about visuals and putting things together and different fonts and colors that work well, and just the imagery of it, I've really, really enjoyed.
Yeah. So Saskia is completely responsible for all the visuals of At One. So if you like the color palette or the feel of the website and all that stuff, that's all you. And you've done a really good job of it. I approve as well.
Thanks.
So yeah, that's a real strength of yours, definitely.
What about one of your highlights?
Highlights of the year?
Just of the year so far.
Oh man, I gotta agree with you. Like, just I'm very proud that we've stuck to At One, and it is what it is today.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't feel like it's going anywhere. When you start a business, you're always like, oh, how's it going to go? Is it doing well? Like, is it going to do well? Like, what's it going to look like in a year? And you want it to be this, to grow so much. You've got all these big plans, and I'm just proud that like we're still at it, and we have helped a lot of people with it. That's the whole point, really. The whole point of At One is to help people develop a practice at home or wherever they are. And I think we've achieved that. And
yeah, for sure.
So yeah, just At One existing is probably the biggest highlight of the year. I don't know. I'm gonna have to think about that. I'm trying to think of like a personal highlight of my year, and I can't think of like a single thing. I like the things that I like about the year. I like the fact that I've done so many different things this year. Like, I've had about 10 different jobs this year. Because for those of you, like, this full transparency here, like, Saskia and I haven't earned a penny from At One. Like, we don't pay ourselves. So it all everything goes into the business.
Yeah.
So we've had to find our own work to support ourselves. And you've done really well in Australia. You've found like quite a few good jobs and good teaching opportunities, and I found some teaching opportunities too. But I've had like four jobs in like different industries. So like I've done landscaping, I've done some like non-emergency paramedic work, I've done freelance videography, and and I guess one of the biggest highlights has been like landing my first actual videography job, like as like a professional videographer job. Yeah, like that's pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I started videography when I started Conduit, which was initially a wellness platform. Remember, right at the start, and then it turned into a clothing company. And then Conduit kind of turned into what At One is today. But it was like you joined forces, so we rebranded.
Yeah.
So I think, my videography, where I'm at with my videography is like, that's the highlight. That's the thing I'm like probably the most proud of. And the move to Australia, like that was big.
Mm.
You know, really, really tough. And it was actually a lot harder than I thought it would be. And just where we are today here,
Yeah.
probably something I'm most proud of. But I can't think of like a moment like that. That's my highlight.
Yeah. I mean, I have loads. I could keep talking.
Yeah, but you're you're more
Yeah,
optimistic than
true.
I am. So you've got like all
This
these
was
wonderful
beautiful,
memories.
And that was
like,
lovely. And you're just like everything.
all I can think of is like, God, my back hurt this year.
I reckon a personal highlight for you would be, again, what I touched on earlier, the kind of really finding a friendship group in Canterbury that was just...
That didn't happen. Did that happen this year?
I feel like it kind of solidified this year. Maybe
Yeah.
it was end of last year.
If that was this year, then that was the best thing.
Like
that
I
ever
feel like
happened to me,
because we had loads of house parties and I feel like that was this year.
Okay, if that was this
think
year,
that
then
was-
it's then
or
it's
end of last year, this
definitely
year. I don't know.
definitely that.
Yeah.
Definitely that. Yeah.
Had like really creating such a lovely group of friends.
Yeah. To all our UK friends, we
Miss
bloody
you.
miss you, and
Yeah.
we'll see you in May.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. What's the next little topic that you've got planned?
Well, I was actually going to ask. It kind of leads on from that. What about a teaching highlight?
So my teaching has developed tenfold this year.
Yeah.
Going from like teaching one class a week, and I think a lot of teachers can probably relate to this, like because not many yoga teachers have it as their full-time thing, because it's tough to make a full-on living or like a salary just doing yoga teaching. Most people will do yoga teaching like kind of as their side hustle or like that, you know, in addition to their full-time job. So that was my reality for when I was in the UK. And then when I got here, I was like, suddenly I can teach, 5-6 times a week. And I found that my teaching improved drastically. I think mostly because I could also, my self-practice developed. I had more time to practice. And I think that is the most important thing in regards to teaching. So having a deeper self-practice and more time to practice and more capacity to teach, that helped my teaching so much. I found that I developed a lot more. I discovered some new teachers which have really influenced me. My whole style has changed.
Yeah.
My whole style has completely changed of teaching. And I look back at the classes I was doing in the UK and thinking, and I can see how far I've come as a teacher and how much more comfortable I am standing in front of a class and like holding space and creating a vibe, because I think that's so important. This is all the fine details of running a yoga class.
Yeah.
So my teaching highlight is just my personal development.
Yeah.
I think. And I've taught in like some real different locations. Yeah, since I've been here. When I was in the UK, I was just teaching in the coffee shop. In the class that I'd created. Whereas since I've been in Melbourne, I've taught in climbing gyms, I've taught in regular gyms, I've taught in like fancy yoga studios, I've even taught in a bloody skyscraper in a corporate office in the centre of Melbourne City. So, just being exposed to more yoga and in different environments. Yeah. What about you?
Well, I would agree with that in terms of because there is more yoga here in Melbourne, I've been able to practice more, as in actually go to classes more. And that has definitely helped my teaching. I think it's so, so important to do that. I would say maybe like a highlight of mine this year in terms of teaching was, again, just when we left the UK, I did a few kind of events and yoga socials with all my students. And we did like a final class, and just the energy in the room, and knowing that everyone was there. Most of them had been there with me, practicing with me for quite a long time. So most of them knew each other and were friends or had made friends through my classes. So that was just really lovely, seeing the community that yoga can create. So I reckon that was one of my highlights.
Nice.
In terms of teaching. What about something you've learnt this year?
Just in terms of life?
Yeah, it could be it can be anything. It could be business related, it could be yoga related, it could be just life in general, really anything.
The biggest learning point was going freelance and realizing how tough it is to, I think I took having a career and a salary for granted, and how much comfort that provides. That was like a big shock and learning point for me, like going freelance and just being like, shit, this is completely different. Like your life completely changes, the way you look at work and approach it, and how much work it actually takes to not be successful, but just kind of keep the show running.
Yeah.
I would say that's one of the biggest learning points for me.
It's a pretty big one.
Yeah.
I think that's a big one. For me, it's that it's okay to rest. And this is one that I think I actually spoke a little bit a while back, in a few podcasts back. In previous years or before, I've always felt guilty about resting, even though I'd always say, like, it's okay to rest, this kind of thing, and encourage other people to do so. I would still always have that bit of guilt within me if I had a day where I didn't do anything. And I literally mean just, absolutely nothing productive. Even on my days off, I would want to do something that was like benefiting me in some way or progressing in some way. Whereas this year I've lent into my yin side a bit more, and I've felt actually genuinely not guilty about having days that are unproductive, or
sleeping in.
Yeah, like having lie-ins, or just, do you remember during lockdown where you would like want to watch TV during the day, and I just couldn't do it. I was like, I can't. Do you remember that?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, I remember that. I remember you were like, oh, let's watch the series that we're watching, and it would be during the day. I was like, no, I can't. I gotta work. I gotta do stuff. Whereas now I feel like I'd be far more chilled out about doing that. So I think I've really seen the importance of rest and how beneficial it is and how much we need it, and we probably need more of it. I
think more people need to learn that actually, and be okay with like chilling out.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I actually feel okay with it now.
Yeah, it's not laziness if it's deserved.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
Nice. I see on your little notes you got one teacher as well. Is that
what we learned in terms of teaching?
No, it says what we learned, one teacher. Is that a teacher that we've like a new teacher for this year?
No, I didn't actually mean that, but that's quite a nice.
That's a good question.
Yeah. So let's ask that question. One teacher. Is in one teacher we've like who's influenced.
Yeah, like that we've found this year, and that
I feel like our answers can probably be the same.
Who's yours?
Well, I have a few, but definitely one of mine would be any of the commune.
No,
Patrick Beach.
Patrick Beach.
Yeah.
Is it? Yeah. Okay, it's Patrick Beach, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I always saw Patrick Beach on Instagram. Like he'd pop up on my reels and be like, "Oh fuck that guy! He's just does all these crazy poses." And then when I actually started doing his classes, I was like,
"Oh, he's very good."
Damn, they're real good.
They're really good.
Like there's some crazy stuff in it. Like he does do a lot of like inversions, but they're always in a way that you don't have to do them.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? It's not like I never feel like I have to sit out of the class, because the inversions are kind of like transitions into into stepping forward or another flow. So it's like optional. So yeah, definitely Patrick Beach, and also shout out to Lee Fisher.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is his name? Yeah. I think
Lee.
I think his name's Lee Fisher.
Yeah.
Lee, my mate Lee from Primal.
Yeah.
Oh, he's not at Primal anymore, but
he's a great teacher.
Yeah, I really loved his classes and his style. Yeah, that's a good question.
That's a really good question. I like that one. I like that. So to kind of wrap it up, I guess, next year, anything we can disclose? Or, I think certainly that we are heading back to the UK for a little bit, from May to June. And we will definitely be doing some classes there, maybe an event or two. We'll see how it goes. We're there for 6 weeks, but time flies. So we'll see how much we can get in. But yeah, that's exciting.
Yeah, I think with next year, like obviously it's like everything we're already doing and more. So you can probably expect more classes. The podcast, I would love to up the podcast to 1 episode a week. And upping the class schedule as well, like putting more classes on that one. That would be great, and we're going to try as best as we can to make that possible. Obviously, as the business grows, we're going to be able to do more, especially once we can start paying. So once we can start paying ourselves, then it gives us freedom to put more time into it. But running this and supporting ourselves financially is it's a bit of a balancing act. So yeah, more of what we're doing now. There are some things that we cannot disclose that hopefully we can soon. We're gonna start on a new course as well. So if you didn't know, we already released our meditation course, 7-day meditation course. So more courses and just kind of like beefing up at one, having more options for people, maybe different membership options.
Like tiers is something we want to do.
Yeah, and like if people, because some people aren't interested in Pilates and they just want to do the yoga like as like a physical practice. So maybe having like different membership types that people can just do the yoga and it's like maybe a little bit cheaper. Making at one is all about accessibility, and so just finding ways to draw people in and make our practices accessible to everyone, no matter what it is that you want. And expanding on it. That's it, really. It's like more of the same. Like, we've got some, who knows what's around the corner.
I think this year is like any year. It just shows you how you never know what's around the corner and what might come up.
Oh, and like events. I want to do more in-person events. So obviously we're going to do some events in the UK whilst we're there on a UK trip. But I want to do events like in Melbourne as well. Like I want to meet people in person. I think that's something we haven't...
Build up our Aussie... side a bit more.
Yeah, but we haven't really tapped into events with that one. Our focus has purely been online, and which is good because that's our thing. But we can do events. Why not? Why not? I think that's going to be a big focus of 2023.
Definitely, and collaborations with other people in the industry as well. Even maybe some of the people that we've had on the podcast. They're so talented, so many of them, that I'd love to like actually incorporate them into an event that we do or something like that.
Yeah, please let us know of people that you think would be suitable or great to have either on the podcast or put into At One. And if you're one of those people, then reach out to us. We're really open to collaboration and ideas. This business is run by us too, and then Cass as well in the UK.
Shout out to Cass, who's just a legend.
I feel like we haven't mentioned her enough in this episode. Big thank you to Cass.
Yeah.
Suksin,
yeah.
She's our champion on the ground in the UK. She's running our in-person classes in the UK and does a lot for us. And she's a really good friend of ours.
Yeah.
And we love her so much. So shout out to Cass. If you haven't done her classes either online or in person, then definitely check them out. But big thank you. That's the take-home message of this episode and what we want to kind of say. Huge thank you for all your support, for doing our classes in person, online, on the on-demand platform. If you're a member, we love you. We just cannot thank you enough. If you're not, consider signing up to At One because it's only going up from here.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we hope you have a good Christmas.
Yeah, have a great Christmas and a very happy new year. We've got a little bit of a break, I think, over the next couple of weeks from the podcast. But yeah, we'll be back in January.
Yep, back in Jan, hitting it hard. More classes, more podcasts, and
that good stuff.
Yeah, you're going to see more of us, and we want to see more of you. Have a great rest of your 2022, and be kind to yourself most of all. Think back to all the things that you've achieved this year. Look back at your struggles. Take the power from your pain, and be proud of yourself. Show yourself some love and kindness for the rest of the year, and let's start 2023 strong and connected. So from Saskia and I, thank you, and
see you soon.
Yeah, we appreciate you. See you soon.